Everyone, thank you for joining us. It is the 17th of March 2025, and we have a very special guest this evening who is Louise Bloomer, the Wiccan Lady. And I have a little bio ready. So, Louise is a Wiccan, a hedge witch, an eclectic solitary witch, author, and founder of the Wiccan Ladies Witches School. Raised with a strong witchy and psychic influence, she discovered in 2010 that there was a name for the beliefs and practices she'd followed her whole life. After years of studying, researching, and exploring different groups, Louise embraced her own path and became the Wiccan Lady. So, with a deep love for herbal magic, curating a collection of around 185 herbs, Louise naturally aligns with the traditions of the hedge witch. She believes in crafting a personal spiritual pathway guided by responsibility, wisdom, and the core principle of harming none. To Louise, witchcraft is a journey, not a rule book, and each practitioner should be free to explore and evolve their practice in their own way. So Louise is a passionate teacher and also spiritual teacher of the year that we've just heard today, and creator, sharing her knowledge through her witches school and her writings. She offers her own range of witchy supplies, which are available online and at mind, body, and spirit fairs across the UK. So whether through her teachings, crafting, or writing, Louise is dedicated to empowering others to embrace the old ways in a way that resonates with them. So Louise, thank you so much for joining us. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Thank you so much. That sounded like something that I might have wrote.
You did.
I know.
Yeah, so it's a combination of what's on your website and bits I know about you anyway. So I've been following you around for about 5 years, I think,
Yeah.
and yeah, fascinated by your story. Please tell us how you got started and when did you discover that you were a magical and spiritual person?
Um, yeah, so I suppose when you're living the life, you don't realise that you're any different to anybody else. Um, I started to notice things that were a little bit different when I went to school, and other people weren't doing the things that I was doing at the times that I was doing them. And occasionally I'd say things in class, and then the teacher would not be very happy and sent me to sit out in the corridor. Um, my dad was an officer in the army, so he never really said very much. My mum, who is literally frightened of her own shadow, but is such a gifted medium and does nothing with it, never really said very much. So I lived abroad most of my youth, and it was really only when we came back to Britain to visit family twice a year that I had input into the more spiritual side of life. So my gran was very spiritual, and my mum's mum's mum, so my great nana, um, was also absolutely fabulous. So she was the person that taught me at 5 years old um, that we don't cut an apple straight down, um, that you roll it on its side and cut it, because then you have the beauty of the pentagram on the inside of the apple. And I just presumed that everybody's parents or grandparents cut an apple like that. It wasn't until I was much older I realised that actually very few people were doing that. Um, so yeah, I never really thought about a name for it, and it wasn't until I opened a shop and a lady used to come in quite regularly, and we were just chatting, and she said, "Oh, obviously you're a witch," and I went, "Oh, that's a bit rude," because I'd never considered myself as that. I just considered myself as me. And she said, I think your philosophies and stuff are very Wiccan. You should read a book on Wicca." And I had Wiccan books in the shop. So I took one home and had a read of it. And I thought, actually, I really can relate to that. And so then I started asking more and more questions. from family members. And one of my uncles was, I suppose, far more spiritual than my dad had been able to be. While, he was in the army. And so I used to get snippets from him and his wife and all my cousins that were all really lucky because they were all just living the life all the time. Yeah, the more I researched and I was able, I hate the fact that we do nothing but label things. But once I was able to put a label on my practices, it actually made it far easier for me to put things into the categories that they belonged into. And I realised that the family is sort of split into two beliefs. So part of them are following the old style Wicca. So from olden times, not Gerald Gardner form of Wicca from the 1950s. And then part of the family were following a more hedge witch role, communing with the fae and doing meditation and trance work and stuff very easily. So yeah, that's basically what happened. I considered myself to be very normal, and it turned out not so normal after all, compared to all the other children that I went to school with. So
That's amazing. So when I think of you, though, I do think of you as more of a hedge witch, because I know you love your herbs. And with 185, why do you have so many herbs? Yeah.
The thing with herbalism is once you get into the plants and you start to realize all the health benefits they have, all the magical benefits they have, every plant on the planet does something magical and also something that is a health benefit to some people, not all people, because some plants do have contraindications to people's health. And obviously some of them are highly toxic. But even the really toxic ones we can still use within medicine if it's done in a proper way. Please don't anybody listen to this and just go and grab a load of belladonna berries and eat them, because that would be stupid. And every single plant can be used within magic. So it becomes, the more you learn about each plant, the more you need to seek out new plants. And so it grows very quickly. And not just the quantity, but also the size of the jars that you store them in. They start off quite small jars and then end up as humongous jars. So yeah, it takes up quite a bit of space being a herbalist.
And you grow your own herbs, don't you? You have an allotment. Yeah. So if somebody wanted to start growing their own herbs, what would you suggest? How should they get started?
So if somebody's interested in being a herbalist, the first thing I'd say is you don't have to grow your own plants. There are plenty of plants available in the wild. And as long as we're careful about how we take those, so never taking more than we need, not pulling up the entire plant, trying not to cause damage to it when we're taking bits off it, and remembering that there are lots and lots of other foragers and also animals and insects that need the nutrients from those plants. So we can do that. And I would always start with the ones that are very obvious. So everybody knows dandelion, everybody knows nettle. And even if you're not sure what wild garlic looks like, which is hugely abundant at the moment, everybody recognizes the smell. So there are certain things that are very obvious to people. And I would start with those and try doing easy things like making herbal teas, or maybe making room sprays or adding some of the herbs into a carrier oil to use on your skin, or even for anointing candles. So I would start with those because it gets you into an easy way of working with them. And then if you want to grow your own, you don't need very much space to do it. I'm lucky we actually don't have a huge garden, but we do have a polytunnel in the garden, so we can grow for longer periods of time because they're protected from the weather. And the allotment actually that we had, where I used to do a lot of my magic, we got fed up with it flooding because it was sandwiched between a goit and a river that used to flood a lot. So we gave that back because it was just heartbreaking going up there every time it flooded and everything was ruined. So I've got far less space, but it is easy to grow things if you look at growing in a different way. So I've got lots of pots with handles on them that we just put cup hooks into the side of the wooden shed and along the wooden fencing at the bottom of the garden, and then we hang the planters off those cup hooks. So the shed needs pulling down in reality, but it looks fabulous in the summer because it's got all these beautiful plants all, tumbling down the side of it. So it's got two benefits. And if you've only got a tiny garden, you're using bits that people normally wouldn't think about. So it's thinking about what you're going to grow. If you've only got a small planter, it's pointless putting something like comfrey or borage in it that would generally take over a garden. But there are lots of things that don't need very much space. And then the things that do spread, you just put into the soil in your garden. And lots of plants that I use would be classified as weeds by most people. And they literally need no looking after. You don't have to have green fingers to look after those. But small garden, don't bother with the ones that people call weeds, because you can find those out in the wild more or less anywhere. So save your space for the stuff that you maybe can't find that easily. We're really lucky now because you can buy small potted plants, the herb type plants, from nearly every supermarket in the country. And as long as you take it home, water it, and then repot it on into a bigger pot, generally they just thrive. So you don't even have to grow from seed if you don't want to. If you do want to grow from seed, and this is from personal experience, make sure that you get your seeds from a really, really good supplier. So the Eden Project in the southwest, they sell seeds, and they're absolutely spot on, and they're the only company that I use now. But I've tried many companies. Once bought some mandrake seeds and managed to grow 3 different varieties of tomato. No mandrake whatsoever, but we ended up with lots of tomato. So not all the companies are quite as ethical as others. So bear that in mind as well if you're going to buy from seed.
So protection wise, is it like people used to have protection plants near their front door? What would you suggest for protection? Is it rosemary?
Yeah, so rosemary is a really good one because it has different uses. So it grows into like a little bush. So it looks great. It's quite woody, so it's really easy to look after. It's very hard to kill rosemary, even if you've got freak weather. So it looks nice if it's in a great pot. Really hard to kill. Smells gorgeous when you brush against it, or if it's a windy day. It's safe for most people and animals. So it doesn't matter if you've got little children or grandchildren and they're picking at it because it smells good, because it's safe to eat. And obviously you can take snippets off and put it in your cooking as well. So it does lots of things, but it is a great protector to have by your door. And my suggestion is that if you can get one on either side of your door, so people are sort of walking through a little barrier to get in the doorway, then that's even better. So one on each side rather than just one.
Yeah. What do you kind of do personally for your own protection? Because a lot of people do ask these kind of questions of like psychic protection. And I know you've got a herbal grimoire on your website, which is an amazing resource. And I actually write
Yeah,
my own courses based on your herbal grimoire. I do, we've done it. And it's in your book as well, which I do have a
yeah.
copy of. Yeah. But what kind of things do you personally do?
So depending what I'm doing, I ground and protect every morning when I get up anyway. I do that in my shower cubicle, which everybody laughs at, but I'm extremely busy, and I'm also forgetful because I'm busy. But the one thing that I am doing every day is getting in the shower. So I incorporate it into that routine because then it's practically impossible to forget to do it. So if you can put it as part of your routine, it just makes it easier. And my protection and grounding is just done as visualization. But on Thursday, I'm having people round for a ritual. So we're going to do the Ostara ritual. Um, and because I don't know all of those people particularly well, I don't know what their visualization skills are like. So then we have to adapt it to the people that we've got there. So we will be doing our protection in a slightly different way, and we will be drawing light. So we'll be drawing the energy from our chakras and connecting them to each other, expanding that light out through the back of the circle, and then calling in particular deities that resonate with Ostara, calling in the elements and any of our own guides and guardians that we want to call in, and doing that. And so we'll incorporate love and light and all the usual things that you would say to encourage only good energy to be in that space. So people generally can do that a little bit easier than just saying, you know, visualize roots growing out your feet, or visualize a big bubble around yourself. Crystals is another one. So many people are into crystals now. So my go-to is usually either obsidian or tourmaline for my grounding, because they're both very powerful. And for if I wanted to mix a crystal in with that for protection, for myself, I would either use moonstone, that just works particularly well for me. It's not necessarily a protection crystal. I just feel like I have a connection to moonstone. Or the other one would be black kyanite, that I like to use. But if you have a crystal that isn't necessarily for protection, but you just gel with it, then use it, because there's a reason why you're gelling with it. People could make a little charm bag. So these little voile bags with the drawstring on the top, they're ideal. And you mentioned my herbal grimoire on the website. People can just dip in and out of that as they wish. There's about 260 herbs on that, and it tells you all the ones that are for protection. So you could add 2 or 3 of those herbs into a little voile bag and just carry it with you in your pocket, or in the side of your bra. Maybe not if you're a man, that would be a bit odd. Or chuck it in your handbag. If you need protecting from people at work, if the person who sits next to you, maybe doesn't quite have the same energy as you can stick it in your office drawer. It'll just give you a bit of protection from those energies that are different to yours as well. So there's lots of different ways that you can protect. And a classic is obviously wearing a protection charm. So if you are a pagan, your protection charm would be a pentacle, the 5-pointed star. Obviously for Christians, their protection would be a cross.
Mm.
So
I've got a
yeah,
portal, mine's a portal pendant, which is special
yeah,
energy artwork. Yeah.
yeah. So it's dependent upon your belief system, but nearly every belief system has some form of talisman that means protection to them. So you could just wear that as well, and it would help.
Yeah, so Corinne's saying that she puts shungite in her bra. Yeah, I know a lot of people do that
Perfect.
every morning. Yeah, perfect. That sounds good.
Yeah, and that's it. Other people, I don't connect with shungite. It doesn't do anything for me, so I don't use that. But I know thousands of people who
Obsidian.
absolutely love it and get so much from it. So it really is just finding, if you want to go crystal, find the crystal that works for you.
Mm.
And you can mix together as well. So you could have a charm bag with 2 or 3 herbs in it for protection, and your crystal added into that as well if you wanted to.
Yeah, perfect. Did you always grow up like kind of honoring the wheel of the year? Because we're moving into Ostara, the spring equinox, which is generally, is it this Thursday that everybody's celebrating?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Uh,
so the equinox is on Thursday.
mm,
So it it was a very muddled childhood, because part of being an army family, we had to go to family service at the church on the barracks every month. Um, but I feel quite lucky about that because the padre that we had was absolutely fabulous, and he was obviously very aware that there were lots of people there, maybe a little bit under duress, but who had to go because their dad or their mum was in the forces. Um, and so he was very good when he gave his sermons, and they were exciting. And for quite a while, I used to go and help at the Sunday school just because I loved to be in his presence. He was just such a great guy. Um, and he was so informed about so many different things. So I'm probably one of the only witches that can recite all the names of the Old Testament off by heart, and the New Testament. But it became a bit of a party game, so a few of us used to do it. And they were all heavy Christians, so they just thought it was odd that the local witch could do it as well. Um, but yeah, I think, when I was younger, people lived more by the seasons anyway. So you were celebrating the Sabbats, 4 of them, without even realizing that's what you were doing. Um, but obviously nowadays we tend not to live by the seasons because you can buy your food in the supermarket 12 months of the year, can't you? So um, you know, there's not that same need to know the seasons.
so you have such a varied pathway. So one of the things about witches school is that it covers so many different pantheons, and everything is how it feels. How is there one particular pathway that you love the most, one particular goddess, or something that really is your favorite? Because you're so neutral all the time. People can ask you anything and you've always got an amazing answer. So what do you actually love?
um, I have 2 goddesses that I absolutely adore. So my long-term goddess has always been Ceridwen. Um, so she is a Celtic goddess. She's the keeper of the cauldron. And I have a little thing for cauldrons. Well, I have a couple of very large cauldrons. So saying a little thing for cauldrons is probably not quite true. Um, so she's been my long-term goddess, and I've done a lot of work with her. And then not long before COVID, I formed a working relationship with Ellen of the Ways, who is also a Celtic goddess. So she is connected more to ley lines and energy pathways, um, and particularly to reindeer. But well, any deer trods really, but particularly reindeer. So she has a connection to the Sami tribes. So that came about quite by accident, and it turned out she'd been trying to form a relationship with me for about 20 years, but I hadn't noticed. So yeah, eventually a complete stranger came up and had a word with me. And off the back of that relationship, I actually ended up creating a course that relates to her and healing the earth and trying to save the planet in a mystical, spiritual way. So they're the two that I resonate with the most. But I'm quite happy to call on any god or goddess. So if I was doing a spell that I was doing in circle and I wanted additional energy for support, if my spell was for abundance, I'd call in an abundance god or goddess. If it was for fertility, I'd call in a fertility god or goddess. Not that that would be for me, by the way, Julia, but if I was doing it for somebody else, thought I'd better just put that into the universe that it would not be for me. So yeah, I don't, even though I consider myself to be Celtic, I don't feel a need to stick solely to Celtic gods and goddesses. If there's one out there from a different pantheon that I think would do a better job, then I politely ask them if they would step in and help. And generally they do. They don't seem to be phased that I'm not following, an Egyptian or a Germanic system. So they're fairly laid back.
Yeah, I actually had a client yesterday at the show, and and I asked the question, who are you working with? And there was fear. She was afraid to reach out to a deity. So, how do people get started from your point of view? What would you suggest to your students?
I think the easiest thing to do, if you can meditate, then to just simply meditate and ask your deity to step forward. Um, so I had students here at the weekend working, and we did a very short 15-minute meditation where they just found a beautiful spot that they felt safe in, sat on a chair and called for their deity, and the deity came up over the hill and came and sat next to them. And then they could ask them any questions that they wanted. All of the people got the name of the deity. And some of them were saying afterwards that they hate meditating, they just don't think they're good at it. But it worked, because if there's deities waiting to work with you and guide you, then obviously they will step forward. A couple of them didn't get an exact name, but from the description they could give and the gift that was handed to them, it was obvious who the deity was. So that's what I'd do. If you can meditate, I would try and do it through meditation, and it works well. But otherwise, just ask out, and just I don't treat my deities that I work with any different than I treat my family members. So I speak to them like the normal people. I talk to them as though they're in the room, and I don't seem to get any issues with doing that. There's no need for all the smoke and lighting and all that sort of stuff. I treat them no differently than I would if I was working with spirit, or if I was having a conversation with my husband. Well, I wouldn't chow at the deity as much as I chow at Joe, obviously. But yeah, just treat them as though they're people and normal people. And
Yeah,
I think they seem to respect that. So
you are a powerful meditation leader. I think in year one, we did one, and I literally felt myself rising out of my chair. And yeah, I'd never had that experience before. But it's the music as well plays a big part, and I use the same music
yeah,
now because everybody loves that music. And but yeah, it's amazing. And that elemental one that you do, I could really feel the change in the elements. That's a
yeah,
powerful meditation. Yeah, highly recommended. Yeah,
yeah. No,
amazing.
I love the element one. I
Yeah,
mean, I love the world tree one as well,
yeah,
because I think it just puts you into a place of sanctuary and you're safe because it's your sacred space, isn't it?
yeah.
So yeah.
So we have a question about Ostara. So what energies can we expect on this spring equinox? And tell us a little bit about the goddess that you're going to be working with as well.
Okay, so there are a few different spring goddesses. So on Thursday we will be particularly calling in Ostara. We could call in Eos as well, but I don't want to confuse it because some of the people coming on Thursday have never been to a Sabbat before. And I would like them to enjoy it, so I don't want it to be difficult for them. So we're going to call in Ostara as the main sort of goddess of spring. The whole thing about spring is it is realigning your body back to balance, because as we come out, winter is all about hibernation, isn't it? And it is that healing period for our bodies. And as we start to relax and settle down, because our bodies are trying to heal, we tend to all end up with every single ailment that's going. So we all end up with colds and flu and sore throats and stuff. And it's just that process of our bodies trying to heal themselves. Once we get to spring, things change completely, because we've got equal day and night, and everything is starting to come back to fertility. So it's such a beautiful time, and it's building us up for summer, when the energies really rise and we find ourselves doing far more, for the sole basis that there's far more daylight, and so we can fit far more in. So it's on Thursday, the actual ritual that I've written will be about people thinking of Ostara as being a rebirth, and coming back into fertility, because fertility means lots of things to lots of people. It's not just about having a baby, but everything is fertile. You know, the grass is coming back. It won't be long before we're cutting our lawns. Flowers are starting to come back, so the daffs are up, the crocuses, primulas, all these sorts of things. So we're getting beautiful colour back in the gardens, and the birds are all singing to each other, looking for their partners. Lambs are already being born, so it's a fabulous time for fertility, and just reawakening us after those dark months. So yeah, there's no scary energy to be worried about for spring.
Is there anything in particular we should have if we're going to, maybe celebrate alone or do a meditation? If we wanted to set up a little shrine or altar, what would you have on yours?
Okay, so I have my dad, before he joined the army, used to be a joiner. So he makes a lot of woodcraft. So he made me a beautiful little wooden egg cup with a wooden egg in it that I've had for years and years. So I always put that on my altar, so that the egg of fertility is represented. I usually have a little tiny vase with some daffodils in it, because not only are they yellow, so the colour of the sun returning, but daffodils are out now. So, spring's the time for daffs. I tend to make a little pot of loose incense, and it's just herbs. I don't add any resins to the spring one. So I'll put that out, but it'll have things like chamomile and lavender, and rose petals in it. So the spring incenses tend to be quite floral in smell. What else will I have? Oh, I've got a little silver coloured hair that somebody found in a charity shop and thought, oh, Louise will like that, which I do. I absolutely love it. And it hangs. So I've got this little hair that hangs out the side of my chalice. So I always put that out as well, because obviously hairs are a part of Ostara. But if you don't have, I mean, not everybody's going to have a wooden egg at home, are they? But in all the shops now, there's so much stuff for Easter. Um, and eggs are represented within Easter as well, because the church took that obviously from pagan belief. And will a chocolate one do? It will. It might not last. Who knows? It might not last very long. But yes, a chocolate one is fine.
Always room for
Um,
chocolate.
yeah,
Spiritual.
definitely. So you can buy, the little plastic ones that you hang on a tree or all those sorts of things. So as long as it's representative of an egg, but the ideal thing to do, and especially if you've got kids or grandchildren, is go out, pick some different herbs, stick the herbs in a pan of water, individual pans, stick a little tiny bit of vinegar in, an egg, and boil your egg, because all different herbs will create a natural dye. So the egg, then when you take it out to dry, the shell will have been dyed a different colour. Or I had witches round yesterday, so we were actually doing some spring crafting and other bits and pieces. So they painted their eggs in acrylic. So yeah, you can decorate a proper egg if you so wish, but I would suggest that you do hard boil it first, only because one of the students did drop his 3 times. So had it have not been hard boiled, there'd have been a terrible mess on my floor.
Do you make simmer pots to like cleanse the home? To put herbs in that?
So I have made simmer pots, and I think those sorts of things you go in phases. Um, so I went through a phase for a few years where I was making them all the time. And I've sort of come out the other side of that. And maybe in a few years I'll go back into the, oh, I must do simmer pots. Um, but they're lovely. And especially if you like cooking with strong smells, sometimes the smell can linger. If you've used garlic and onion and stuff. So the simmer pots help to neutralize that. Um, and generally, lots of people can't use incense if they've got acute asthma or if they've got animals that don't like to use incense sticks or smudge sticks. But simmer pots, because it's just vapor, they're perfectly fine to use as well.
That's really cool. So tell us about, you've got all these amazing courses listed on your website. Which one is your favorite to teach?
That would have to be magical herbalism, closely followed by herbalism for health.
What?
And I love all my witchy ones. Um, but obviously I adore my herbs. So those two I love. Um, and then out of the witchy ones, it has to be witches school because it's a 3-year course. The actual course, it becomes very repetitive because you're just saying the same thing on the same month every year. But what absolutely blows my mind is seeing the growth in the students. So even the ones that never do the homework, Julia, um, you see, you just see so much growth in them over the year. And if they stay for the full 3 years, they're not the same person at the end that they were when they started. Um, and for me, that's absolutely magical. It's like to me, it feels like really good parenting. So,
Yeah,
you
that is
know,
kind of how I see you. I do see you as a magical mum. Really. That sounds weird. But it was like it was at least a year before you started doing the Zooms that I was stalking you for a while, trying to find, oh, I can't get up to
yeah,
Leeds or whatever. So when you brought out the Zooms, that was amazing for so many of us that we could connect with you
yeah,
and find each other. And I was just really lucky to get a good group as well, wasn't I? Everyone's quite similar,
yeah,
really funny, and that connection, that monthly class, and it's so affordable. And it just brings everyone together, and it's kind of the reassurance of knowing that you're there, that I never really reach out to you and ask you a question, but
yeah.
knowing that you're there and I could if I needed to, that's been really supportive for me, and I appreciate that. Thank you. So yeah, so it's
Oh,
definitely
good.
recommended. When does it enroll again? Is it October?
Yeah, so classes are always going to start in October now. Just because September's a really busy month for me with shows. And then in October, I always end up with loads of people saying, "Oh, can I join?" And they've already missed the start date. So I thought it's easier to push it back to October. And it allows people who have got kids to get the kids back in a routine for school and stuff. So, so yeah, it's going to be October moving forward. And this year's dates, um, I'll probably launch about the end of June. So I've had lots of inquiries already, but
Yeah,
um,
I think for people who are seeking and wondering if they are a witch, going to
yeah,
witches school really lets you find out kind of who you are. And no, I'm not, I'm pretty much the worst witch out there. But I do identify as a priestess, and that's stuff that started to come
yeah,
forward over the last 4 years. And I feel confident in those initiations and that kind of working now
yeah,
as a priestess in my community. So that's been really good for me. Even though, I mean, I do have a besom, of course, which you've made, because you do hand make witches'
yeah,
brooms, which
yeah,
are amazing. So I have my besoms in the corner holding space for us right now. Yeah.
fabulous.
So I do love witches' school. So it's highly recommended. Anybody who's not sure if they're a witch or not, just join witches' school. Yeah, and you'll get so much out
Yeah,
of it. Meditation practice really developed in witches' school, and being confident in working with deities, cards, psychic development's a big part of it as well.
yeah,
Yeah. So you teach a
yeah,
separate course, don't you, in psychic development?
yeah. I've just Saturday was the first because it's psychic development. It's 3 days, but spread over 3 months. So they go home and practice for a month before they come back for the next class. Um, and this intake just started on Saturday, so all but one of them was from witches school as well, varying years in witches school. Um, and they were a fabulous bunch, and some of them were absolutely amazing. We did psychometry, and the stuff they were saying was absolutely phenomenal. So yeah, they've been a great bunch. And then I do a 1 day tarot course as well for people who just want to learn how to
Yeah.
read the tarot. Um,
Do
so
you
I've just put
do readings, like psychic readings?
yeah. So I've been doing the shows for about 20 years, and I started off doing the shows just selling crystals. That was my thing. And then I realized fairly quickly that crystals probably wasn't going to be my thing. So then I used to go as a reader, but I found it really infuriating. I can't stand people that are trying to rip people off. And you see the same people, don't you? You'll know from doing the shows yourself. You see the same people all the time. And 20 odd years ago, there was a few people on the circuit doing readings who were saying the same thing to every single person that sat in front of them. And it used to make me really sad and cross. So I decided I'd stop doing readings at shows. But I do readings at home. So people either come to the house or I do it on Zoom and then send them the recording. Um, so yeah, I still do readings, but
Yeah, it is like an evolution at the shows, isn't it? So I started off with the crystals,
yeah,
moving into the
yeah.
readings and the therapies, and now I'm thinking, where do I fit in? I don't know if I do anymore, to be honest. Yeah,
Mm.
infuriating. So we have a question, and it's saying, is there a specific herb or scent that would help open up the connection to spirits, working with the third eye and the higher chakras? What do you think?
Okay. So yes, there is. So my suggestion would be to get yourself some mugwort, and mugwort grows all over the country in huge abundance. So you don't even have to go and buy it. Um, I would look up, go out into nature with your phone, look up a picture of mugwort. Once you find it, it's easy because the leaves are quite distinctive, and they're green, but with a sort of silvery tinge underneath them. So once you've got it, you'll know it, and you'll just start seeing it everywhere. So you can make mugwort tea, and that's brilliant. It works exceptionally well for people who want to astrally project as well, or for people who maybe aren't fabulous at meditating and want to be able to meditate better. If you're good at meditating, it helps you to go that step further and to take you into trance. And it just helps to open your third eye and your crown chakra. So you could use mugwort. If you don't like herbal tea, it's fine. You can put it into an oil blend. So just with a grape seed or an almond oil, whatever you'd use to massage onto your skin, and just let it steep in that. So I'd put it into a jar, stick it in my cupboard where it's fairly dark and it's warm, and then just go and give it a little shake every day. And then after 6 weeks, strain the herbs out of it just so it doesn't spoil. And then you can dab a little dab onto the pulse points of your wrists, and a little dab onto your third eye, and that will help as well. But obviously the tea's stronger because you're consuming it. So that's what I'd use. It
That's
works really
amazing.
well.
Amazing. Is there anything that you've got coming on this year that you would like to promote or tell us about before we finish and stop the recording?
Well, I'm doing a few different things. So I've decided that I'm going to properly do foraging sessions. So in April, actually, it's on Easter Sunday, because obviously my followers don't care about Easter. They'll all be coming on Ostara. So yeah, Easter Sunday, where I'm taking out a foraging group. So we're going to get them picking and finding out about the plants and stuff and how to pick them and use them safely. So I'm quite excited about that, because normally it's just me and my husband going out foraging. I am trying to find the time to do a couple of self-development things myself, because it's ages since I've invested in my own knowledge. So I'd like to do that, but I haven't actually found my little thing that I want to do yet, Julia. So we'll see, but I'm trying to create some time to do that. And then otherwise, it's just all my usual courses. I've got lots on the website, and probably half of them are already full. And then I'm running a camp for Mabon.
Mabon. Where's the Mabon camp?
This is a posh Mabon camp because it's in a very nice hotel. We've moved off the campsite that we were on 2 years ago.
Letting a load of rowdy witches in a posh hotel.
Yeah.
Get the drum out at 3 a.m.
Exactly. So yeah, we're staying in a really nice hotel, and it'll be the second time. So we did Samhain there last year, and the food's.
Is this the Lake District?
No, so the Lake District event, that was supposed to be in a converted double-decker bus, and the company pulled the plug on that just a few weeks before, which is why we ended up in this particular hotel, it's in between York and Easingwold.
Okay.
So we Joe and I had stayed there a couple of times. So when I think the company that we were supposed to be doing the camp in the Lake District with has gone bust. So I was desperately trying to find somewhere else because it was only a few weeks before, and then Joe happened to ring the hotel and they were like, yeah, bring them all here. How bad can it be having a hotel full of witches?
Yeah.
And then it was really funny because we happened to be there at the same time as 70 or 80 Masons were there as well. So, and then one solitary vicar. So yeah, it was a really good weekend.
So I've been actually thinking for the last 6 weeks about doing a retreat in September, but I think it means I'm supposed to be coming on your Mabon camp. Yeah. So
Well, strangely, I do have. It was fully booked, and then somebody who I really wanted to be there hadn't replied, but it was because she was on holiday. So when she got back from a holiday, she went, "Can I still have a place?" So I went, yeah, it's fine. So I'm now needing to find one more place to fill that
okay.
room.
That sounds good.
So
Yeah.
yeah, if you want to
It might
go,
be me.
get in touch. I'll send you the
Yeah.
details. We'd love to have you.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Yeah, brilliant. So your website is thewiccanlady.co.uk, and Witches School is not just for Wiccans, it's for
That's
everybody.
true.
And yeah, and you do lots of courses and earth healing courses, and you teach Reiki, you're a Reiki master teacher,
Yeah.
crystal therapist, you do therapies at home as well. And so it's been amazing. Thank you so much. I'm going to stop recording, but we've still got a few minutes to chat to you. If anyone didn't want to ask a question while we were recording, they can ask that question now.
They
So
can
thank you
indeed.
so much.